The first thing I did after the hospital told me I had terminal lung cancer was go home and kidnap Olivia Reed, the woman I'd been secretly in love with for 8 years. A month later, aside from a general feeling of exhaustion, I felt no pain at all. That's when the hospital called to inform me they'd mixed up my lab results with someone else's. I was perfectly healthy. In that moment, I panicked, my eyes drifting to the woman sleeping soundly in my bed. The sky outside was gray the moment I held that thin diagnostic report in my hand. My mind was too. Lung cancer. Terminal. The doctor patted my shoulder, murmuring things like stay optimistic in modern medicine, but the words sounded warped and distant, like they were coming through a thick wall of glass. I don't know how I walked out of the hospital or how I made it home. The apartment was empty, just like my life. My name is Ethan Clark. I'm 28, a painfully average software engineer with a life story so simple it wouldn't even fill a single page. My parents died in an accident while I was in college, leaving me this decent-sized condo and enough money that I never had to try too hard to get by. I have no real friends, and my only hobby is collecting succulents, which I always manage to kill. And now I was going to die, too. I sat on the sofa, staring out the window at the gray sky, my mind a complete blank. The fear of death was an icy hand wrapped around my heart. And then a thought, a crazy, irrational thought that even I couldn't comprehend, surfaced out of nowhere. Olivia. She was a senior when I was a freshman. The first time I saw her at the Welcome Week orientation, she was burned in my memory. That was 8 years ago. Like a stalker, I quietly followed every step of her life. She went to grad school. I went to grad school. She got a job at a big tech firm, so I fought like hell to get a job there too, just for the chance of a coincidental run-in at the cafeteria. I even knew that on Friday evenings, she liked to go to a cafe near the office called Anchor Point Coffee to work, always ordering a black Americano. My life was a bland, colorless void. She was the only color in it, but I'd never worked up the courage to say a single word to her. Now I was dying, taking this 8-year, one-sided obsession to the grave with me. I couldn't accept it. Why? My life was already such a failure. Why couldn't I have this one last thing? An hour later, I was standing across the street from Anchor Point Coffee. I wore a baseball cap and a face mask, my heart hammering against my ribs. At 5:30 sharp, Olivia walked out of her office building. She was wearing a beige trench coat, her long hair draped over her shoulders, lifting gently in the evening breeze. She was still so beautiful it felt like the whole world brightened for a second. She walked into the cafe. I followed her. From a corner table, I watched her order, watched her sit down, watched her pull out her laptop and start working. My palms were slick with sweat. I was waiting for an opportunity. It came quickly. The cafe started to fill up, and a child running around accidentally knocked over a server's tray. For a moment, it was chaos, and everyone's attention was drawn to the commotion. This was it. I took a deep breath and walked up behind her. She must have sensed something because she turned around. Her clear, intelligent eyes reflected my own tense, distorted face. "Ethan," she said, a little surprised. "It's you. What a coincidence." She knew my name. The realization made me dizzy for a second, but it was immediately replaced by a greater, more desperate insanity. I pulled the item I'd prepared from my pocket, a cheap-looking plastic water gun, and pointed it at her. "Don't move. This is a robbery." My voice was so dry and hoarse it sounded ridiculous even to me. Olivia froze. She looked at the water gun in my hand, then back at my face. There was no fear in her eyes, just a strange, unreadable expression. "Come with me," I hissed, trying to sound menacing. The chaos in the cafe continued, and no one noticed the bizarre drama unfolding in our corner. Olivia watched me in silence for a few seconds. Then, she nodded and closed her laptop. "Okay." She stood up calmly and followed me, so composed that I felt like I was the one being kidnapped. I took Olivia back to my condo. The second I closed the door, regret hit me like a tidal wave. What the hell was I doing? Kidnapping? Had I lost my mind? But it was too late now. I had to see it through. I rummaged through a drawer and pulled out a cashmere scarf from winter. After a moment of hesitation, I gently, almost symbolically, wrapped it around her wrist twice and tied a loose knot. "You." I cleared my throat. "You stay here. Don't try to run." Olivia sat on my sofa. She glanced down at the soft scarf on her wrists, then looked back up at me, that same placid, indecipherable look in her eyes. "Oh," she said. This reaction was wrong. Terribly wrong. Shouldn't a normal person scream? Or struggle? Or burst into tears? She was acting like she was just visiting. Sweat beaded on my forehead. "Aren't you scared?" I couldn't help but ask. "Scared of what?" she countered. "That water gun? Or the kidnapper whose ears turn bright red whenever he speaks?" My face flushed hot. I'm not kidding. I blustered. I will seriously. Seriously what? Squirt her with water? I couldn't finish the sentence. The atmosphere in the room was so awkward you could cut it with a knife. To break the strange silence, I decided to do what a kidnapper should do. Prepare a ransom. No, prepare dinner. Are you hungry? I'll make some food. The words were out before I could stop them, and I wanted to slap myself. What kind of kidnapper asks his hostage if she's hungry? Olivia looked at me, and I thought I saw the corner of her mouth twitch into a smile, but it was gone in an instant. Whatever. I fled into the kitchen. The fridge contained only a couple of eggs and a packet of ramen. I fumbled around, boiling water, adding the noodles, cracking the eggs. I was so nervous that I forgot to turn down the heat, and the water boiled over onto the stove. When I cracked the eggs, half the liquid ended up on the counter. When I finally emerged with 2 bowls of what could only be described as egg drop noodle soup, Olivia was no longer on the sofa. My heart sank. She ran? Of course she did. It would be weirder if she hadn't. The knot I tied with the scarf was so loose a sneeze could have undone it. Fine, let her go. It was just a ridiculous dream before I died. Just as I was thinking this, I turned and saw Olivia standing in front of my row of succulents. You're overwatering these, she said, poking a waterlogged bear's paw with a slender finger. They're going to die. I just stared at her, forgetting to speak. She turned around, her gaze falling on the bowls in my hands. Is that my dinner? Yes. I placed the bowls on the dining table, embarrassed. She walked over, pulled out a chair, sat down, picked up a fork, and took a bite with a neutral expression. Then, she took a large gulp of water, her face still impassive. Ethan, she said, putting down the fork and looking at me seriously. Did you kidnap me just so I could taste your salt? Is free egg noodles? I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. I opened my mouth, then decided to just let it all out. I had nothing left to lose. I'm dying. Olivia froze. I have lung cancer. Terminal, I said, looking her straight in the eye. The doctor said I have a month or 2 at most. I'm in love with you. I have been for 8 years. I don't want to die like this, so I want you to be with me until the end. After I finished, I felt completely drained, as if all the strength had left my body. I collapsed into a chair, waiting for her judgment. Scorn, disgust, a call to the police? I'd accept any of it. Olivia just watched me, her gaze unwavering. She stared for a long, long time, so long I thought time itself had stopped. Finally, she let out a soft sigh. Fine, I'll do it, she said. I thought I'd misheard. What did you say? I said, I'll do it. Olivia repeated, her tone as calm as if she were commenting on the weather. But on one condition. What condition? I asked, dumbfounded. She held up her loosely bound wrists and wiggled them in front of my face. First, untie this. Second, from now until the day you go, you do what I say. I stared at her, my brain unable to process what was happening. What was this? Had the tables turned? Before I could react, Olivia had already untied the ridiculous knot herself. She neatly folded the scarf and set it aside. Then she stood up and surveyed my apartment like she was its new owner. The kitchen is a mess. Clean it. Starting tomorrow, no more watering those succulents. And from now on, don't use so much salt when you cook. She issued her commands one by one, and I, the so-called kidnapper, could only trail behind her like a schoolboy who'd been caught misbehaving, nodding continuously. Yes, Olivia. Got it, Olivia. And just like that, we began the strangest cohabitation in history, a bizarre dance of kidnapper and hostage. Olivia really did move in. She never mentioned the police again, nor did she try to escape. She even took a long-term leave from work the next day, citing a family emergency. As for me, I went from being a kidnapper to a full-time butler. Every morning, I was up at 6, preparing breakfast according to a meal plan she'd laid out. The exact ratio of vegetables to meat in the sandwiches, the precise temperature to which the milk should be heated. She had rules for everything. After breakfast, she would sit on the balcony lounge chair to read or work on her laptop while I was responsible for cleaning. The floors had to be spotless, the windows so clean you could see your reflection. Her standards for my rehabilitation were incredibly high. Once after I'd mopped the entire apartment, she walked across the living room barefoot, then lifted her foot to show me a single strand of hair on the sole. Unacceptable. Do it again, she said, her face a mask of indifference. I could only grab the mop and start over. She was like a strict drill sergeant, and I was the clumsy new recruit. I didn't know why she was doing this. Maybe it was a form of revenge, a way to torture the criminal who had abducted her. If so, I accepted it. After all, I owed her. And to be honest, a secret part of me was happy. As hard as it was, this was probably the most fulfilling, most human month of my 28 years. I got to see her every day, talk to her, do things for her. My condo was no longer empty. The air carried the faint scent of her shampoo. Her books appeared on my shelves, and the flowers she planted on the balcony were thriving. She even took over my collection of half-dead succulents. And within days, the wilting plants miraculously perked up. Sometimes, while busy in the kitchen, I'd sneak a glance at her watching TV in the living room. She'd be curled up on the sofa, a pillow in her lap, letting out a soft laugh at a funny scene. In those moments, I felt that if I died right then, it would have all been worth it. I started keeping a journal, or maybe it was a suicide note. I wanted to write down all my feelings for her, all the absurd things that had happened between us. After I was gone, maybe she'd find it and understand that there was once a coward in this world who had loved her so foolishly. My body grew weaker by the day, which seemed to confirm the doctor's diagnosis. I was often dizzy, lacking the energy to do anything. Olivia seemed to notice. She stopped ordering me around as much and would tell me to rest if I looked pale. She even started researching herbal soup recipes, forcing me to drink a large bowl of dark, strange-tasting broth every day. Good medicine is bitter, she would always say. Watching her bustle around for my sake filled my heart with a bittersweet warmth. How I wished time could stop forever in this moment. How I wished I wasn't sick. How I wished we could have started our story like a normal couple. But there were no second chances. I thought my life would drift toward its end in this state of quiet, bizarre happiness. Until that afternoon, when the phone rang. It was an ordinary afternoon. The sun was bright, streaming through the sparkling clean windows and casting warm yellow patches on the floor. Olivia was taking a nap, her breathing even and soft. Not want to wake her, I'd set my phone to vibrate. I was sitting on the rug beside her, writing in my goodbye journal in the sunlight. She made me chicken soup today. It was delicious. She said I look much better. I know it's just a final burst of energy before the end. But just being able to watch her like this is enough. Writing this, I felt tired, so I leaned against the sofa and drifted off to sleep. I don't know how much time passed before the vibration of my phone startled me awake. It was an unknown number. I figured it was a spam call and almost ignored it, but on a strange impulse, I answered, tiptoeing out to the balcony. Hello. Hello. Am I speaking with Mr. Ethan Clark? This is City General Hospital. The voice on the other end was polite. My heart skipped a beat. The hospital? Was there another change in my condition? This is he, I said, my voice tight. Mr. Clark, first and foremost, we would like to offer our sincerest apologies for a major error on our part. What? Error? Well, the person said, their tone deeply apologetic, regarding your physical exam report from last month. We discovered during a review. That you were given the wrong one. The wrong one? I stood there, stunned, the words not making any sense. There was another gentleman with the exact same name who also had an exam that day, and one of our nurses accidentally mixed up the two reports while filing them. We only discovered this serious mistake today when the other Mr. Clark came in for a follow-up. The voice on the other end kept apologizing profusely, but I couldn't hear a single word. My mind was consumed by one thought, echoing over and over. The report was wrong. 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 So, Mr. Clark, your body is perfectly healthy. There are no issues with your lungs whatsoever. We are truly, deeply sorry for the distress we've caused you. The rest of the words blurred into an incoherent buzz. My hand went slack, and the phone slipped from my trembling fingers, clattering onto the floor. I wasn't sick. I didn't have lung cancer. I wasn't going to die. This realization brought no joy. Instead, it was like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over my head, chilling me to the bone. Slowly, very slowly, I turned around. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the crack, I could see Olivia still fast asleep on the bed. She was on her side, her cheek glowing softly in the afternoon sun, a faint smile on her lips. A month ago, believing I was at death's door, I had done the craziest thing of my life. I had kidnapped her. I had used a lie about my impending death to get a month of living with her. And now, the lie had been exposed. I wasn't a pitiable man with numbered days. I was a kidnapper, a criminal who had manipulated her emotions and held her against her will for a month. Cold sweat soaked through my shirt. What was I going to do? Tell her the truth? Hey, Olivia, sorry, big mix-up. I'm not sick. You can go now. Let's just pretend this last month was a weird role-playing game. How would she see me? As a complete lunatic? A pervert who would do anything to satisfy his own selfish desires. She would call the police. I would be arrested. And then what? Stand in a courtroom and deliver a tearful speech about my pathetic secret crush? I was finished. My life was well and truly over. I looked at the peaceful, beautiful woman on the bed, and a wave of panic and despair unlike anything I'd ever known crashed over me, pulling me under. From that afternoon on, I wasn't right. I fell into a state of extreme paranoia. Every car looked like a police cruiser. Every siren sounded like it was coming for me. When Olivia woke from her nap, she found a ghost of a man. "Ethan, what's wrong? You look awful," she said with a frown, pressing her hand to my forehead. "No fever." Her fingertips were cool against my skin. I flinched back as if shocked. Nothing. I'm fine," I stammered. Maybe my blood sugar is low." Olivia gave me a suspicious look, but didn't press further. "I want sweet and sour pork ribs for dinner," she said instead. "Okay." I scrambled into the kitchen, nearly tripping over my own feet on the way. That dinner was a nerve-wracking disaster. I nearly sliced my finger off while chopping vegetables. Making the ribs, I mistook the salt for sugar and the soy sauce for vinegar. What ended up on the table was a plate of black, unidentifiable objects with a pungent, bizarre smell. Olivia picked up a piece, put it in her mouth, and chewed twice before looking at me with a deadpan expression. "Ethan, are you trying to poison me and then kill yourself in a dramatic murder-suicide?" "No, I didn't." I nearly jumped out of my chair. I'm just not feeling well today. I'll remake it. Forget it." She put her fork down and poured herself a glass of water. "I'm not hungry anymore. I was on edge all evening." While she watched TV, I paced back and forth behind the sofa like a caged animal. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. "Can you please sit down? You're making me dizzy." I stiffly sat on the armchair farthest from her, my hands on my knees, posture rigid like a convict awaiting sentencing. She glanced at me and then said casually, "By the way, my mom called again today, asking when I'm coming home. And a friend of mine said she's going to report me missing if she doesn't hear from me soon." My brain exploded. Report her missing. So what do we do? My voice was trembling. I told them I'm fine, just staying with a friend for a bit, and that I'll be back in a few days, she said nonchalantly, but her eyes never left my face. But I can't put them off forever. My heart plummeted. She was hinting that it was time to let her go. Of course. It had been a month. Even if I really were dying, this kidnapping game had to end. But how could I let her go? My mind raced, frantically trying to come up with a plan. Plan A. Full confession. Tell her the truth, and beg her not to call the police. Probability of success. Close to 0. Plan B. Flee the country. Wait for her to fall asleep, pack a bag, and disappear to some corner of the earth where she'd never find me. But what about the condo? Where could I even go? Plan C. See the lie through to the end. I could pretend my condition was worsening rapidly and then die in front of her. That way, she could leave with a clear conscience, and I could preserve what little dignity I had left. This plan seemed the most viable. Yes, that's what I'd do. I began to plan my own death. First, I had to look like my health was in a steep decline. The next morning, I didn't shave, sported 2 massive dark circles under my eyes, and practically floated out of my room with unsteady steps. "Morning, Olivia," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Olivia was watering her succulents. She turned to look at me. "Did you go out robbing graves last night?" "No, just not feeling well." I clutched my chest, leaned weakly against the wall, and began to perform a coughing fit. Cough, cough, cough. I coughed like my life depended on it, a gut-wrenching, theatrical display that felt like I was about to expel a lung. Olivia put down the watering can, walked over, and silently watched my performance. When I was gasping for air, she finally spoke, her voice calm and slow. "Ethan." "Yeah." I forced myself to look up, trying to muster a tragic expression that said, "I'm in agony, but I'm holding on for you." "Did you forget," she said, "that the main symptoms of terminal lung cancer are coughing up blood, chest pain, and difficulty breathing, not just dry heaving like an asthmatic donkey?" My coughing stopped abruptly. My expression froze on my face. How did she know that in such detail? You've been acting weird ever since you took that phone call yesterday afternoon." Olivia crossed her arms, her gaze like an X-ray, scanning me from head to toe. "Spit it out. What's going on? Did the hospital say something else?" It was over. She'd seen right through me. My mind went blank. All my plans, all my pathetic attempts at deception, seemed utterly childish under her steady gaze. My psychological defenses were crumbling under Olivia's relentless advance. She was too smart, and she knew me too well. The slightest shift in my mood never escaped her notice. "Your complexion has been much better lately. You were strong enough to carry a heavy Amazon package up the stairs by yourself," she analyzed coolly. "And yesterday afternoon, you were furtively writing something on the balcony. I saw you." She was referring to my goodbye letter. "You weren't writing a will," she pointed out, hitting the nail on the head. "You were writing an apology letter." I saw the title, 100 Reasons Why I Deceived Olivia Reed. I said nothing. In a moment of panic, I had indeed written that title before realizing how stupid it was and crossing it out. I couldn't believe she'd seen it. I felt like I'd been stripped naked and thrown into a snowbank. So she took a step closer, looking directly into my eyes. Tell me what really happened. I retreated, backing away until I hit the wall. There was nowhere left to run. Just as I was about to surrender and confess everything, a savior descended from the heavens. With a loud thump, the front door was unlocked and thrown open from the outside. "E-Man, I'm back. Miss me?" A booming voice preceded a burly figure dragging a massive suitcase, storming in like a hurricane. It was Leo Fisher, my college roommate and my only real friend. His company had sent him on a business trip for the last few weeks. He had a spare key to my place. Leo burst into the living room and froze, his eyes landing on Olivia and me. The wide grin on his face solidified, his eyes bulged, darting between me and her, his mouth forming a perfect... "Holy crap," he stammered. "Oh, Olivia Reed? Are you two living together?" The tense atmosphere between Olivia and me was shattered by the intruder. I panicked, frantically trying to signal Leo with my eyes to shut up. But he clearly didn't get the message. He dropped his suitcase and rushed over, grabbing my shoulders and shaking me vigorously. "You sly dog. You actually landed the CS department goddess and didn't say a word. When did this happen? You didn't even tell me. Some friend you are." "No, let me explain." I was on the verge of tears. "Explain what?" Leo shot back with an "I get it" look, then turned to Olivia with a beaming, enthusiastic smile. "Olivia, hi. I'm Leo Fisher, Ethan's best friend. Don't you worry, this guy might be a little quiet, but he's a total keeper. He can cook, he can code, and he has zero bad habits. You made the right choice." Olivia looked at the two of us, her expression unreadable, but a flicker of amusement danced in her eyes. "Hello," she said, nodding at Leo. "You have no idea." Leo was just getting started, launching into a full-scale betrayal. "This guy has been crushing on you for 8 years, ever since freshman year when he..." "Shut up." I lunged forward and clamped a hand over his mouth. MMPH. MMPH. Leo struggled. The scene descended into chaos. Olivia just stood there, arms crossed, calmly watching us wrestle like two clumsy bears. By the time I managed to drag Leo into his room and slam the door, the apartment was quiet again. I leaned against the door, panting heavily. It was over. It was all over. Leo's big mouth had exposed everything. I took a deep breath, preparing to face the storm. But when I opened the door, the living room was empty. Olivia's bedroom door was closed. I waited anxiously in the living room all night, but she never came out. The next day, with dark circles even worse than before, I prepared the most lavish breakfast of my life, ready to beg for forgiveness. But her door remained shut. I knocked. No answer. A knot of panic tightened in my stomach. Had she left? I tried the doorknob. It wasn't locked. I pushed the door open. The room was empty. The bed was perfectly made, as if she had never been there. The only thing left was a note on the nightstand. Her neat handwriting filled the page. "Ethan, I've gone home. As for your 8-year crush on me, we need to have a serious talk. 3 o'clock this afternoon. Anchor Point Coffee. I'll be waiting. Don't be late, and don't even think about running." My heart leaped into my throat. The moment of judgment had finally arrived. At 2:55 p.m., I was at Anchor Point Coffee. I chose the most inconspicuous corner table and waited nervously. The past few hours had felt like an eternity. I had replayed the upcoming confrontation in my mind 1,000 times. How would she question me? What would I say? Should I apologize for the kidnapping first, or for the deception? Maybe I should just get on my knees. At 3:00 sharp, Olivia appeared at the entrance. She had changed into a simple white shirt and jeans, looking crisp and professional. She walked straight toward me and sat down in the chair opposite. "You came," she said. "Yeah." I nodded, so nervous I didn't know where to put my hands. A waiter came to take our order. "A black Americano, no sugar." "Thanks," she said. I'll have the same," I mumbled. After the waiter left, silence fell between us. I could hear my own heart pounding in my chest. Finally, Olivia broke the silence. "Leo said you've liked me since freshman year." She looked at me, her eyes calm and unreadable. "Yes." There was no point in denying it now. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I didn't dare." I hung my head, my voice as quiet as a mosquito's buzz. "You didn't dare?" She seemed to find this amusing. "You dared to kidnap me, but you didn't dare to confess." I was speechless. She was right. I had done the craziest, most indefensible thing imaginable. Yet I couldn't bring myself to say a simple "I like you." I was a walking, talking contradiction of coward. "Ethan," her voice suddenly became very soft, very serious. "What do you really see me as?" I looked up and met her gaze. There was no anger in her eyes, no contempt. Just a complex emotion I couldn't decipher. It looked like disappointment, but also hurt. My throat was dry. I didn't know how to answer. What did I see her as? A light that illuminated my gray existence. A dream I was too scared to even touch. The last salvation of my dying life. A salvation I had selfishly dragged down into the abyss with me. I was silent for a long time, so long that our coffees grew cold. Finally, I made my decision. I stood up, walked over to her, and with a loud thud, I dropped to my knees. Every head in the coffee shop turned toward us. Olivia, I'm so sorry. I squeezed my eyes shut and practically yelled. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have kidnapped you, and I definitely shouldn't have lied to you. I'm a monster, a lunatic. Just call the police. I'll confess to everything. I shouted it all out in one breath, then knelt there like a puppet with its strings cut, waiting for the final verdict. A murmur went through the crowd. I could hear people whispering, "What's going on? Is he proposing? Doesn't look like it. Did he say something about kidnapping? Maybe it's performance art." I couldn't care about any of them. I was only waiting for Olivia's reaction. The slap or the furious screaming I expected never came. Instead, I heard a long, drawn-out sigh from above me. Then, a hand gently landed on my head and ruffled my hair. "Ethan, you really are?" I heard her voice, laced with a mix of exasperation, amusement, and something else. Affection? An idiot. I snapped my head up, looking at her in disbelief. Olivia was leaning over, looking down at me. The corners of her mouth were turned up in a slight smile, and her eyes were sparkling. "Get up. You're embarrassing yourself," she said. I was in a daze as she pulled me up from the floor and pushed me back into my seat. My brain was still trying to boot up. What was happening? Now it's my turn to talk. Olivia took a sip of her cold Americano, then looked at me and began to speak slowly. "First of all, about your crush on me. I've known for a long time." I just stared at her, my jaw slack. "Did you think you were being subtle?" She raised an eyebrow. "Every time you accidentally ran into me in the cafeteria, your eyes were practically glued to me. When you followed me home, your footsteps were as loud as a bear's. And your friend, that Leo guy? Sophomore year, he posted on the campus subreddit with the title, 'My bro is applying to grad school for a girl. What are his chances?' He even attached your photo and my entire class schedule." My jaw nearly hit the floor. Was I that obvious? Leo. I was going to kill him. "So," Olivia continued, watching my petrified expression, "I was waiting for you." "Waiting? For me?" "Yes. Waiting for you to confess," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "I remembered you from the freshman orientation, after you quietly helped me carry my broken cello back to my dorm. After that, I started to notice this underclassman who seemed awkward but was always watching me. I thought it was kind of interesting." My heart skipped a beat at her words, "kind of interesting." "I waited and waited for you to talk to me. But you ran away every time you saw me. I had to create my own opportunities, like accidentally dropping my student ID right next to you. You picked it up and turned it into the dean's office." "Me?" I vaguely remembered that happening. "I waited for you to graduate to get a job. I thought you would have matured a bit by then. But you still just stared at me in the cafeteria and followed me from a distance. Ethan, do you know how many times I wondered if you just got off on some kind of unrequited platonic obsession?" Her tone held a trace of resentment she probably didn't even realize was there. "I waited for you for 8 years, she said, looking me straight in the eye. "My patience was wearing thin. I was actually about to start going on dates, to finally give up on you. And then last month, you Ethan Clark, the man I waited 8 years for, kidnapped me with a water gun." She couldn't help but laugh as she said it. Do you know what I was thinking in that moment? I shook my head, mesmerized. I was thinking, thank God, this clueless block of what finally did something. At that moment, my brain shut down completely. I looked at the smiling woman across from me, at the light dancing in her eyes that I had never seen before, and a ridiculous but undeniably true conclusion began to form in my mind. I thought I had kidnapped her, but it turns out she had kidnapped me all along. The other patrons in the cafe gradually left until it was just Olivia and me in our corner. It took me a full 30 minutes to process everything she had just told me. It was too much information. She knew I liked her. She was kind of interested in me too. She had waited 8 years. And when I kidnapped her, she was relieved. What was even happening? "So, this whole past month, you were just..." I struggled to find the words. "Playing along," she finished for me. "I was giving you a chance, and giving myself one too. I wanted to see what the real you was like underneath that cowardly shell." "And the result?" I asked nervously. "The result?" She smiled. "The result is that you're an idiot who can't take care of himself and cooks with enough salt to kill a whale, but you're not a bad person." That was a reasonably good evaluation, I supposed. Then, That call from the hospital. I had to ask the most important question. Oh, that Olivia said, picking up her cup again. I made that call. Puffed. I sprayed the mouthful of water I had just taken all over the table. You made it. I was dumbfounded. Of course. She looked at me matter-of-factly. I figured your I'm knocking on death's door act had gone on long enough. If I didn't give you an exit ramp, were you planning on actually dying in front of me for dramatic effect? But how did I know the hospital's number? How did I imitate a nurse's voice? She interrupted. Ethan, have you forgotten what I do for a living? I'm a programmer, too, and a much better one than you. On the second day I was at your place, I hacked into your phone. I saw all your call logs, your chat history, and that laughably fake-looking lab report. She paused, then added, by the way, I also looked up the hospital that issued the report. Their system security is pathetically weak. I was completely and utterly stunned. From the very beginning, I had been a clown, performing a one-man show for her while she knew everything. She knew I wasn't sick. She knew I was acting. She even played along with my act, only to be the one to expose me in the end. I felt like my intelligence had been pinned to the ground and curb-stomped. Then, why didn't you expose me sooner? I asked my final question. Olivia fell silent. She gazed out the window, the evening sun casting a soft glow on her profile. Because, she said softly, I was scared too. Scared? Yeah, I was scared that if I called you out, you'd just retreat back into your shell. I was scared we'd go right back to where we started. She turned her head and looked at me. Ethan, I waited 8 years for you. I don't want to wait another 8. Her words hit me like a physical blow. She was just like me. She got scared too. She felt insecure. Beneath that cool, calm, in-control exterior was a heart that, just like mine, yearned to be closer but was afraid of getting hurt. We were both cowards. She was just a little bit braver than I was. I looked at her, at the sincerity and vulnerability in her eyes, and all the hesitation and fear that had plagued me for 8 years vanished in that instant. I took a deep breath, stood up from my seat, and walked over to her again. This time, I didn't kneel. I reached out and gently took her hand, which was resting on the table. Her hand was cool, and it trembled slightly at my touch, but she didn't pull away. Olivia, I said, looking into her eyes with the most serious and clear voice I had ever used in my life. I'm sorry I made you wait so long. Now, can you let me be the one to chase you? The sky was dark by the time I led Olivia out of the cafe, our hands still linked. The streetlights flickered on one by one, stretching our shadows long behind us. My palm was sweaty, but I held on tight, afraid to let go. So, where are we going now? I asked. Home, she said. WHU's home. She shot me a look. What do you think? A grin spread across my face, though I tried to keep my expression neutral. Oh, okay. We walked in silence, but the atmosphere was no longer awkward. A delicate, sweet-feeling blossomed between us. When we got back to the condo, Leo was in the living room, wearing my tank top and boxers, playing video games and slurping instant noodles. When he saw us walk in holding hands, he forgot to swallow the noodles in his mouth. Holy crap, he uttered his classic line again. E-man, did you propose? And she said yes. Get out of here, I said with a laugh. Then what's? Leo looked at me, then at Olivia, a giant question mark on his face. Starting today, Olivia announced, letting go of my hand and walking over to Leo. I'm your buddy's girlfriend, and I'm also your landlord. Your rent doubles next month. Leo, huh? Me, huh? What, huh? Olivia crossed her arms, her queenly aura on full display. He, Ethan Clark, caused me immense emotional distress through kidnapping and deception. Therefore, this condo is now mine. Any objections? Leo shook his head so fast it was a blur. And no objections. Whatever my sister-in-law, whatever Olivia says goes. With that, he grabbed his noodle bowl and sprinted back to his room like a man possessed, thoughtfully closing the door behind him. The living room was quiet again, with just the two of us. You can have the condo. I have no problem with that, I said quickly. I can move out. Move out. She raised an eyebrow at me. Where would you go? Ethan, she said, walking right up to me and straightening my slightly rumpled collar. Did you forget? You still owe me something. Owe you? What? A contract. She pulled a piece of paper from her purse and handed it to me. On it were a few lines written in her neat script with the title, Relationship Contract. Party A, Olivia Reed. Party B, Ethan Clark. Terms, in light of Party B's 1-month-long unlawful confinement of Party A, causing significant emotional distress, Party B voluntarily agrees to become Party A's contractual boyfriend to compensate for his transgressions. During the contract period, Party B must unconditionally fulfill all date requests made by Party A, including, but not limited to, movies, shopping, amusement parks, etc. Party B must tell Party I like you once per day. The final right of interpretation of this contract belongs to Party A. Contract duration, a lifetime. I looked at this ridiculously one-sided contract and couldn't help but laugh. What's so funny, she asked. Nothing. I picked up a pen, and in the space for Party B, I solemnly signed my name. Olivia, I said, looking up at her after signing. Does day, when the contract start now? HM. I took a step forward and gently wrapped my arms around her. Her body was a little stiff in my embrace, but she didn't push me away. I buried my face in the crook of her neck, breathing in the familiar, clean scent of her hair. Olivia, I whispered in her ear, I like you. Her body trembled slightly, then slowly relaxed in my arms. She didn't push me away. Instead, she raised her hands and lightly hugged me back. That sentence, her voice had a barely perceptible tremor. I've waited 8 years and 3 months for that. I froze. She had counted that precisely. She looked up at me from my embrace, a triumphant smile on her face, though her eyes were a little red. All right, day one's task is complete. She gently pushed me away, resuming her queenly posture. Now, go make dinner. I want your sweet and sour pork ribs. And don't you dare mix up the seasonings this time. Yes, ma'am. Mission accepted. Like a soldier who had just received his orders, I marched joyfully into the kitchen. This time, I cooked with the focus of a bomb disposal expert. Every step was executed with meticulous care, as if I were performing a sacred ritual. When the plate of glistening, perfectly balanced sweet and sour ribs was placed on the table, both Olivia and Leo, who had poked his head out of his room, had looks of sheer amazement. Whoa, E-Man, did Cupid possess you or something? Leo said, drooling. Olivia picked up a piece, tasted it carefully, then nodded, giving me a look that said passable. It was the most delicious meal I had ever eaten. Our relationship contract was officially in effect. My life switched from a black and white silent film to full-color IMAX. On the weekend, she dragged me out of bed to go to an amusement park. I, a man with a fear of heights, was forced to ride a roller coaster 3 times. When I stumbled off, pale and weak-kneed, I saw her clutching my arm tightly, a tear of fear still clinging to her eyelashes. It was adorable. So the cool queen got scared too. We went to see the latest indie film. In the dark theater, I awkwardly mimicked the male lead and reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her hand over and laced her fingers through mine, one by one. We even took a trip back to my quiet little hometown. Standing in front of my parents' graves, I formally introduced her to them. Mom, Dad, this is Olivia, the girl I've liked for a very, very long time. She's my girlfriend now. I spoke softly, wiping dust from the headstone. You don't have to worry anymore. I'm not alone now. She keeps me in line. She won't let me make a mess of my life again. Olivia stood quietly beside me, holding a bouquet of white daisies. She didn't say a word, but when my voice choked up, she wrapped her arms around me from behind. In that moment, I felt the hole in my heart that had been empty for so long was finally filled. On the way back, she suddenly asked me, Ethan, what are your plans for the future? Plans? I paused. Being with you. Does that count? She laughed. It counts. But besides that, I thought for a moment, I want to get a new job, or maybe start my own thing. If I just cook for you all the time, I'm afraid you'll get fat, and people will accuse me of mistreatment. You're ridiculous, she said, rolling her eyes, but her smile gave her away. I'm serious, I said. I want to be better. Good enough to make you feel that waiting 8 years for me was worth it. She looked out the window at the passing scenery. It already is, she whispered. The days flew by in a blur of playful arguments and sweet moments. After a month of our relentless PDA, Leo moved out, dramatically demanding compensation for his emotional suffering. The condo truly became ours. Olivia moved her things in bit by bit. The bookshelf filled with books on design and art, and the number of plants on the balcony doubled. Her dresses hung in my closet. Our toothbrushes stood side by side on the bathroom counter. This place finally felt like a home. I started learning about personal finance, studying new recipes, and even joined a gym, trying my best to transform from a loser programmer to a reliable boyfriend. And Olivia, she gradually let down all her guards. She would silently walk up behind me while I was working and wrap her arms around my waist. She would cry her eyes out watching a sad K-drama, demanding to be held and comforted for hours. She would close her eyes and hum like a happy kitten when I dried her hair for her. More and more, I felt like the woman I had kidnapped wasn't some ice queen, but a little liar with a tough exterior and a soft heart. A cute little liar who had stolen my entire heart. One evening, we were curled up on the sofa watching TV. I looked at her sleeping peacefully on my shoulder and was overwhelmed by a sense of profound happiness. Olivia, I whispered, sometimes I still think it would have been better if the hospital hadn't made that mistake. I'm in it. Even though that mess brought us together, I would have preferred a more normal, more romantic beginning. She wasn't asleep. She stirred in my arms, opening her eyes, which were clear and bright. She looked at me and gave me a mysterious smile. Who said they made a mistake? I blinked. What do you mean? Didn't you say you made that call? The call was from me, yes. She sat up and pulled a folder out her bag. She handed me a document. It was a real, unaltered medical report. My name, my checkup date, everything was correct. And in the conclusion section, it clearly stated, mild pulmonary nodules, regular follow-up recommended. Additionally, severe neurasthenia with anxiety symptoms. I don't have cancer, I murmured to myself. Of course you don't, Olivia said. But when I got my hands on this report, I knew you weren't far from making yourself seriously ill. You were staying up all night, eating garbage, living like a ghost. If I didn't intervene, you were going to literally work yourself to death. She paused, a cunning glint in her eye. So I just slightly exaggerated your condition. I felt it was the only way to make a coward, like you finally dare to live for himself. I stared at her, at a complete loss for words. From the very beginning, she had been saving me, in her own way, from drowning. Then, the other report you faked, the one saying I was healthy. Oh, that. Olivia reached into her bag again and pulled out a third document, slapping it down on the coffee table. It was the deed to the condo. My name was on it. You, with your poor health and your even poorer judgment. What if someone actually scammed you one day? She crossed her arms, looking like a queen surveying her kingdom. So from now on, your health and your property are all under my management. She leaned in, her nose almost touching mine, her eyes curving into beautiful crescent moons. So, partner B, any objections? I looked at her, at the stars and the laughter in her eyes, and 8 years of waiting condensed into a single answer. I smiled, shook my head, and then I leaned down and kissed her. To hell with the contract, to hell with being partner B. My life was already hers. Epilogue. 1 year later, in the getting ready room at our wedding venue. Leo, my best man, was adjusting my bow tie. Hey man, I still can't believe it. You actually married Olivia Reed, he said, full of emotion. I remember when you were just the creepy loser who would follow her around, trying to catch a whiff of her perfume. Shut up, I said, laughing. Seriously, I feel like I'm dreaming. What did she ever see in you? I looked at my reflection in the mirror, at the man in the sharp tuxedo, and I smiled. Maybe. She was impressed by my acting skills. Acting? Leo looked completely lost. I didn't explain. I just took out my phone and pulled up a photo. It was a still from my time in the university drama club. In the picture, I was wearing a hospital gown, my face pale with stage makeup, playing a man with a terminal illness. The date the photo was taken happened to coincide with the exact time Olivia remembered me supposedly studying for grad school out of love. And the director of that play happened to be Olivia's father, Professor Reed from the literature department. I put my phone away and clapped Leo on the shoulder. Come on, let's not keep my wife waiting. Outside the door, the love of my life was waiting for me in a white dress. As for who really played whom, and who was the hunter and who was the prey, perhaps that would remain our sweet, unsolvable little secret forever.